Hello guys, this is Hello Tech Gamer here. So I want to throw some stats your way. So, out of the entirety of the beta that went from the, I think it was the 5th to the 12th of December, I played a total of 87 multiplayer matches, in which I got 64 victories and 23 defeats. So it was about a 2.7 win ratio, essentially. And a funny thing about it is that of those matches, almost, what is it, like 40% of them were actually Eldar matches, so, as I spent a whopping 34 of those 87 games playing as either the Dark Eldar, the Craftworld Eldar, or the Eldar Corsairs. Well, in those 34 matches, 28 of those matches were victories, and only 6 of those were actually defeats, which is kind of insane, really. I really think the Eldar might have to be nerfed a little bit, who knows. Now, why am I throwing these statistics at you? So, after putting up my opinions on Domination, so I felt that I needed to clarify my opinions on the issue. As, I feel that maybe I was talking more out of a rage, I feel like, because I feel like I posted that video kind of after having to deal with the frustrating issues with that mechanic as so. And after looking at the actual wider statistics, so I can come with a more broader and focused approach towards it. So out of those statistics, I also counted the amount of defeats that I actually received due to point loss. Now, there are 2 ways to lose in Domination. One is to lose your entire fleet. The other is to lose to points, essentially, where your enemy or yourself gains enough points to win. So, after going through that, I found that out of the 23 defeats I had overall, only 7 of them were to basically not getting enough points, basically, where the enemy got more points than me. And I actually won apparently 1 victory due to getting more points than the enemy, which was fascinating as well. Now, 7 defeats out of a total of 20 out of 87 matches, basically. That is roughly less than 10% of all the games I played, essentially. And is such a minor fraction of everything that I've experienced within the game. And so what does this mean? What this means is that in relative terms, the point mechanic doesn't really affect the overall win and loss ratio that much, if at all, essentially. As it seems that it is so minor and minute that it doesn't really affect the core gameplay, in the sense that it is still typical to just wipe out the enemy's fleet, essentially. And it is more likely that your fleet will get wiped out than it is for you to actually lose the points. And why do I point this out? Because, many of you have pointed out the fact that the Domination mode was designed around the idea of preventing kiting yourself. One of the least fun moments of Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1 would be endlessly chasing down Eldar Corsairs, Chaos carrier fleets, basically, and Tau stealth fleets. You know, there was a I forgot about it. There is a actual ability for the Tau that I forgot about when I was going through getting more footage for the video. So, well, the Tau can permanently stay stealth. Well, not permanently stay stealth, but they can start off without any of the forces being detected, essentially. So, well, they can literally just come out of nowhere. I forgot all about that component. So it's actually, I think it's hilarious so that they actually added that, because you can get the upgrade. So I think it's like special coding that makes it so your ships don't even show up on the map. So you can plan out your special ambush or your special assault on the enemy, which is kind of interesting. But in whole hindsight, I believe the domination mode as it stands has failed miserably in doing this one purpose, essentially. Because if it's designed to do that, then obviously, what is it? The really only fleet that you can actually kite with is currently the Eldar. Chaos or so. The thing about Chaos, let me just go into kiting now. So kiting in general is attacking someone and then basically disengaging. So getting a huge amount of fire on them and then being able to move out of their ability to actually counteract to your movements, essentially. For Chaos in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1, Chaos had a huge range advantage over everyone, in the sense that they could fire at enemy fleets and they could quickly disengage and get out of range of basically everyone's shots. So you had to go full with the accuracy and range upgrades on Imperial ships to even be able to effectively counter this at medium ranges, basically. While the Chaos forces with their lance batteries could 100% hit you, and it could even do more damage to your shields, basically, from a distance. That, mixed with the ability to increase the critical chances on the lance batteries, led to them being able to disable your ships from a long range and just run away from you. That, and you could also go with carrier fleets, where you simply launch bombers endlessly towards your opponents, essentially. This you could do with both Eldar, Chaos, Tau, so you can kind of get away with this as well with the Space Marines in terms of just like doing boarding torpedoes as well. But here's the thing. Ranges, actual engagement ranges, have increased significantly to the point where the Chaos forces have actually kind of been nerfed, in my opinion. So all my battles with them haven't been as one-sided as they were in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1. I believe they have actually nerfed the damage and critical chances of the lance batteries themselves, making it so you can't simply just snipe people from half the map away. On top of that, they've increased the actual ranges and accuracy of basically all the factions from Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1. So maybe not the orcs, but most of all the factions have had the ranges increased to the point where they can accurately deal with targets that are within about 12k units away, basically. The point where, and on top of that, so what is it? So that's Chaos with lances. Now everyone with carrier spam, it was all about the bombers or so. Now it's about boarding actions, essentially, or so, and that's not really, it's not really Chaos or the Eldars or really even the Tau's strength now. So as I've found that the orcs and the Tyranids are actually far better at actually just spamming out ordnance, so spamming out gargoyles, fighters, boarding craft or so. The Tyranid boarding crafts are absolutely insane. But those factions can't really spam them out as efficiently as they could before. And even then, they would have to, in the new meta system with Ordnance, they would have to launch fighters first to not only clear out the way, but also probably to kill, because fighters can actually damage enemy turrets, so rendering a ship basically powerless to do anything against bombers and torpedoes and whatnot. So sending fighters out is actually very effective at not only dealing with incoming ordnance, but also rendering other ships defenseless against the ordnance as well. But I don't feel that any of the kiting from, what is it, chaos and, what is it, just carrier spam is really practical. And even if they get bombers through, there's also the fact that you have a limited amount of squadrons. If you lose squadrons in the game, essentially, you don't get them back. You don't get them back, essentially. And you don't even get back, what is it? You don't have unlimited Nova Cannon blasts or Torpedo blasts, so you can't hide in a corner and just spam these out. So you could do that in, what is it, Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1, because they were unlimited. They did, well, unlimited for every other faction or so. For the Orcs, essentially you would always have a risk of them just blowing up in your face, which I actually forgot about when I was playing as them and spamming Nova Cannon, so that wasn't a practical move either. But most of the gamey spamming tactics don't really work that well, essentially, in the game, just with its core mechanics, essentially. And then on top of that, with Eldar and kiting, I've found that the domination mode doesn't affect this at all. You must understand that most effective kiters, like myself, sadly, so I'm part of this cancerous mode, or so this cancerous meta, will either win before you can get enough points, or so basically, or we'll just lose horribly, or so. We can do huge amounts of damage before this tactic is even valid, so relying on getting enough points is redundant the entire time. I'd like to reiterate the fact that I won almost, what is it, 70 to 80% of all the games I played, essentially. And only 3 of the defeats that I had were 2 points. So as a game mechanic designed to prevent kiting, it has failed. If we look at all the other games that I've played, or so, the 53 matches that weren't Eldar matches, basically, only 4 defeats that I had out of 17 were the result of a domination victory, where someone actually got more points than me. So on the whole, it has failed in the sense that it doesn't prevent huge giant amounts of kiting or so. If anything, it acts as a shorter time limit or so, because I think there was like a 20 or 30 minute limit to how long you could play the game, to the point where if the time limit expired, the defender would just win or so, and whoever was the defender was really 50-50 really in Cruiser Clash. So I believe as a whole the mechanic is fundamentally flawed in the sense that it does not prevent what it was apparently setting out to accomplish, essentially. It doesn't prevent kiting, it doesn't prevent ships from just going around you constantly, because in the given time it would take, even if you took every single point or so, you can look at multiple videos of my matches where opponents have gone by and just conquered every single position I've had, they have still ended up losing because of the fact that in spreading, well, even if they're just sending escorts, basically, they are wasting time on it as I am focusing on wiping out their fleet. And the only times they have won is when they've managed to either damage my fleet enough to the point where I can't recapture the points that they've taken, or that I have essentially just run out of time. well, despite being on maybe the last ship or so, basically, I'm just unable to kill it in enough time to actually win. So, in retrospect, it really fails in preventing kiting, so I don't feel that the idea that it is a counter to this is a accurate statement, as at least for me, it doesn't do this at all, essentially. And on top of that, so there were other comments saying that I should adapt to this, so that I should, focus on sending escorts on the flanks, getting the capture points, that I should make mixed fleet compositions where I have light cruisers and I have more ships that are balanced towards just capturing points. And I will reiterate the fact that less than 10% of my matches have been lost due to domination victories. So changing up my fleet, weakening my fleet to make up for this 10% it's ridiculous, really. So it's almost akin to, cutting off your foot because you have an itch on your toe, essentially. Just deal with the itch, essentially. Just bear it, but you don't just completely change everything about yourself in order to deal with this little inconvenience, and that's what I see it as, an inconvenience. It doesn't complete what it sets out to do, and all it does is it just adds frustration to me. Granted, it's not through the entire game. As I said, only 10%, less than 10% of matches have actually been determined by this, at least for me. I'm not sure what has happened in all your guys' matches, basically. But in my opinion, the mechanic as it stands it doesn't serve its purpose, and it just frustrates me. And I didn't clarify why it frustrated me. I don't feel like I did. Let me just explain further. Because of the fact that I don't mind it, I guess, in the sense that a battle just drags on for too long and then I just lose. I mind it when I have completely destroyed an enemy force and then the guy has like 1 or 2 escorts left and I end up losing the match because I spend 13 to 20 minutes going around trying to destroy his escort, essentially. Destroy his escorts or capture the points, as he just recaptures them after my line ships leaves if I don't have enough. In fact, this is basically kiting in of itself, as he's not damaging my ships. He's not going around kitingly destroying my vessels, but he's kiting the capture points to the point of winning. So theoretically, this system is literally adding. It's basically performing the same task it was set out to destroy. It is adding another element of kiting to the game. Granted, on a smaller scale, so basically, but it's still an annoying form of kiting where you aren't exactly even engaging the enemy fleet. You're just going after these arbitrary points on the map. And I find this absolutely ridiculous that, that this is a thing, essentially, because of the fact that, in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1, this rarely ever happened, essentially, because the fact that if someone had a main fleet designed around kiting, they would either win decisively, lose decisively, or maybe it might get drawn out for some time, basically, but there was always a decisive moment where either they got some lucky shots, got all your ships to disengage, or they slowly destroyed you over time, or you managed to finally catch up to them, tail plot most of their fleet, and even if they did continue, they ended up losing the match. But no one ever kited with escorts. Even if they did, the match would relatively end, as you didn't have to go over and destroy arbitrary point or take over arbitrary points. All you need to do is go, because this is another thing. With the permanent auto abilities on ships, essentially, you can permanently cloak your light cruisers and your escorts. This was not the case in Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1. In Battlefleet Gothic Armada 1, the only way you could permanently cloak yourself is if, well, you were the tower and you just never detected, or if you hid inside an asteroid field or nebula, meaning that you could theoretically just check those as long as they went to town. You were normally going to find something if they weren't showing up on the map every once in a while because the auto ability expired. But as the game currently stands, you can permanently cloak your light cruisers and your escorts. So not only are you searching for this small, fast maneuverable ship that's kiting all the points, but it's also permanently invisible. You see how this argument doesn't stand up, and in my opinion, so if the idea is to prevent kiting, why would they make a system where you can literally annoyingly kite using permanently cloaked ships at the end of the match, basically? What is the point in this? I don't understand it. Now, as anyone who's played Battlefleet Gothic Armada knows that there were 7 game modes. There was Convoy, there was Assassination, Data Recovery, Space Station Assault, Breakthrough, my least favorite, Planetary Assault, and then my ultimate favorite, and the most that I played, Cruiser Clash. The one that apparently everyone hates for some reason, I don't know why. But, the thing about it is that these modes weren't arbitrary like Domination. So, in Convoy, you had a finite amount of ships. In order to win, you had to, if you were the attacker, you had to destroy all the convoy ships, or, yeah, you basically had to destroy all the convoy ships. Even if you destroyed the entire main fleet, and you didn't destroy the convoy ships and they got across the border, you lost, essentially. And as the defender, you could either destroy the entire enemy fleet, or you could get enough convoy ships across the border. Assassination, the enemy has an admiral ship. Defender needs to protect it. The attacker needs to destroy it. Data recovery, the admiral ship has a special data pod on it. You have to use boarding actions to get it. It's a giant hot potato match or so. And the only way to win is if the person who has the... Actually, technically, the only way to win is either to A, have the data and warp out with the ship that has the data, or to destroy the entire enemy fleet. Space Station Assault. Very simple. Destroy the enemy space station. If you're the defenders, you have to defend the space station. If you're the attacker, you have to destroy the space station. Simple as that. Breakthrough. There are 4 or... Was it 4? I can't remember the max of it. I think it was 4 or 2 space little mini platforms or so. And your goal as the attacker is to destroy all 4 of them, or 2 of them, and then escape with a good portion of your line ships. The defender just has to wipe out the enemy fleet, but the attacker can also win by also just wiping out the enemy fleet as well. Planetary Assault, my least favorite mode. You have to get your line ships to a random point on the map, and if you get enough of them, you win, and if you don't get enough of them, you lose, essentially. Absolutely hated that mode or so. The main reason why I hated it was the fact that it was so random. There'll be times where you are attacking, you need to find the point, and it just sends it to some random location somewhere on the other side of the map, or if you're defending, so I have to defend the points, they just put the points right in front of your opponent, and you just end up losing, which is stupid. And then you had the coup de grace, the best mode in my opinion, which is Cruiser Clash, which was simply basically just kill the enemy. That was basically the mode. Search and destroy, find the enemy fleet, destroy them. Simple as that. Very straightforward. Now, these modes kind of also prevented kiting in a sense. In Convoy, if you were kiting fleet and you were defending, you still had your vulnerable transports, and you could still lose if you just did not... You couldn't just run away. You had to deal with the enemy And if you just like abandon them to save your ships, then you just lose your transport ships. And if you were kiting force attacking, then you would have to put your ships at risk, so you couldn't just run away. So you would have to put your ships at risk in order to get at the enemy convoy ships. Assassination. If you are a kiting ship or a kiting fleet trying to kill an enemy admiral's ship, you would have to go after the ship, and which is in the middle of the fleet, essentially. You can't just scoot around. Well, I guess it's defending you could get away, but the thing about it is that you weren't permanently stealth. They knew exactly where you were at all times, basically. There's no way to kind of get away from that. Data recovery, same thing as assassination. The ship that has the data is always displayed, and on top of that, if you are kiting fleet attacking, you have to go after the enemy fleet. You can't just run away from them, essentially, the entire match. Space station assault. If you're kiting fleet attacking, you can't just keep running away or so, as really you'll get drawn down into a fight that you just can't win, as you take huge amounts of damage over time, and there's no way to hide yourself, as the space station has one of the biggest detection radiuses in that game. And if you are defending, then you can't just ignore the enemy, because they'll just pop your space station and it's all over. Breakthrough. You can't just run away. You need to kill the stations. Granted, after the stations are gone, you can just run away as much as you want. There's still a target you have to go after. And defending-wise, you can't just ignore the stations, because if you do, the enemy will just destroy them if they keep the fleet nice and tight together. Planetary assault. If you're a kiting fleet that is attacking, there's an arbitrary point now that you have to go after, and if you don't go after it, and if the enemy fleet is right there, then you will lose the match. And if you even do get it, the enemy has plenty of chances to start damaging and destroying your fleet. And on the other flip of the coin, essentially, there is an objective that you can't necessarily... It's more like a kill zone, I guess, but it's not something that you can just drag out for so long, especially if the enemy keeps the fleet in a good formation, essentially. And then cruiser class. This is where kiting was most prevalent. I admit this. I am probably responsible for most of the kiting that took place in the game, so... Well, not only me, so of course every other Chaos and Eldar, and... Really, Tau? I really never saw the Tau as really a kiting person. Maybe when they were first introduced, but they kind of became more of a force to be reckoned with in conventional fighting. But in terms of kiting, essentially, it would all come down to fleet composition, where you would have to have, because you could never deploy all your ships, so you would have to make a certain amount of your ships able to deal with kiting. So I was able to do it, a good amount of people were able to do it. I feel that the biggest challenge was for new people who had to deal with all these people who had been playing the game for over a year, essentially. They could not deal with all the Eldar kiting or so, the Chaos spamming all their bombers and whatnot, so this was impossible for them. But the bottom line is that the game never forced you to play through only one of these modes. You never always had to play Cruiser Class, you never always had to play Planetary Assault or Breakthrough or Space Station Assault or any other modes. They appealed at random, maybe with like a 50 to 45% bias in terms of Cruiser Class, or so that's because it's the more traditional mode basically, but you were never forced to just play solely that mode. And I feel that by just forcing you to play Domination over and over again or so, that's what tired with me the most, because I am just more keen and used to Cruiser Class, where your only goal is to destroy the enemy. That's it. That's all that matters. You don't have to worry about capturing arbitrary points. And that's the thing about the arbitrary points as well, because they also don't fit narratively with the game, essentially. Because Convoy, You're protecting a convoy or you're attacking a convoy. Assassination. You're killing an admiral ship or defending your admiral ship. Data recovery. The enemy has something that you want. You're trying to steal it. Or defend it. Space station assault. You have a space station. You want to protect it. Or the enemy has a space station. You want to attack it. Okay. Breakthrough. You are stuck on a planet. The enemy has his warp inhibitors trying to stop you from getting out. Gotta destroy the inhibitors so you can escape. Okay. Planetary assault. There is a giant bloody battle taking place on the planet below, and they need orbital fire support. Kind of fits more into the meta than some of the other modes, I guess, or so, because I think I read up in the lore that the biggest thing about, or the biggest reason why orbital strikes don't happen so frequently is because the setup of it makes your ship vulnerable to getting attacked, because your trajectory and your speed is all very predictable, basically. And then you have cruiser clash. Simply two giant fleets trying to destroy one another, or cause the other one to disengage, whichever one happens first. Simple as that. And then you have domination. There are these 5 arbitrary map or positions, and if the enemy controls enough of them and gets enough arbitrary points, they win. Huh? No, it's so... It mechanically doesn't fit into the type of modes that they've had in the previous game, essentially. It is arbitrary and the most gamey of all, essentially, as there's no basis of it in the lore, and I ultimately just find it pointless. So, and statistically, I also find it pointless on a fundamental issue that it just doesn't prevent what it's seeking out to, you know, accomplish, essentially. Prevent kiting, which it doesn't do. In fact, you can make the argument that it is actually encouraging late game kiting of the points, essentially. Which really just adds on to the problems, essentially. You also have the aspect that any good Eldar player who saw some enemy force trying to capture all these positions with aligned ships, basically, could probably capture them faster and could then probably concentrate the forces to kill anything that's separated from the main fleet. So really you have a situation where the mode doesn't really prevent what it's seeking to prevent, and really just adds frustration, at least for me. I'm pretty sure other people have probably had problems with this. I'm sure it can't only be me who's had to, after a 5-minute engagement, had to spend 5 to 10 or maybe 15 minutes chasing after escorts from some guy who doesn't want to lose, essentially. Because that's always fun. No, I found it absolutely frustrating. I mean, granted, it happened less and less as the beta went on, simply because of the fact that I got good enough to the point where I had more line ships at the end of the match, to the point where I could actually deal with said kiting, basically. In the sense that I could just either destroy all the escorts, or I could find them relatively easily with the huge amount of fleet that I had left. In fact, I have to also point out that the Tau glitch essentially led to at least like 2 or 3 of those point victories, because of the fact that they simply had so many escorts left over that they were able to win. So the percentage is probably theoretically lower, so probably around like maybe 7 or 6%. So in my opinion, it doesn't need to be in the game. They should either add the other modes that were in the previous game, or if they just don't want to do that and they want to use the mechanics that are currently in the game, just make it so Domination is switched wires. You could switch between Domination and Cruiser Clash. Like if it's like a 50-50 rotation, maybe. Because Cruiser Clash is in the game. If you played Skirmish with the AI, you could set it in the settings where you could just play Cruiser Clash. So it's in the game, essentially. The mechanic to get rid of the arbitrary points is in the game. why they chose to just make it so it's only Domination is beyond me, but if I could have at least the random chance, so the 50-50 chance of just having standard cruiser class, I would be okay with that. I would settle for that. I don't completely understand why people like Domination, but I can understand if someone has a preference for a certain type of game mode. And I would be completely okay with it still being the game. All I'm saying is that I would like my cruiser class, because I feel that at the core of the game, it is essentially just destroying the enemy fleet, and it should not be relegated to, chasing down escorts at the end of the match, which was the majority of point wins. And I would like to also point out the fact that in Planetary Assault, even though you were going after points that were randomly assigned, you couldn't just permanently cloak ships. On top of that, only line ships could actually bombard the planet. You couldn't use escorts. Just putting that out there. But tell me what you guys think. Now, I found it fascinating that my first video or so on this mechanic ended up being the most disliked video that I've ever, well, in terms of ratio, not in terms of just numbers, but in terms of ratio, it's the only video that I've ever put out that has been negatively downvoted, essentially, with more downvotes than there were upvotes, dislikes than likes, which I found very interesting. So, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you guys next time.